Hi, I'm Luke Woolsey, and for the past 17 years, I've been a general contractor, a small business owner, and a real estate investor here in San Diego. I started this show to connect with people, share experiences, and learn from each other's life stories with the goal of building each other up. Welcome to Building Up. Really excited about today's guest, flown straight in from Texas. Happy to have him in here and on the hot seat. Mike is with us today and is my father-in-law. Thanks for coming in.
Great to be here. Enjoyed our Thanksgiving together, and now you brought me into the hot seat. I love it.
Yeah, we just celebrated Thanksgiving yesterday, and so amazing day. Good work on the turkey. Super good.
You bet.
Why don't we just start with a little bit of a background on you, where you're from, kind of your upbringing, and just a brief overview.
Sure. Well, born right here in San Diego, native. Grew up in Lakeside, went to El Capitan High School, and from high school got right into work in the construction trade, and from there started a family, got married. We ended up going into the horticulture industry for a while, into sales, and then into real estate.
Nice.
Yeah.
Great. You said Lakeside. That's kind of was a smaller town back when you were going through high school, right?
Very much so.
And you are you from a larger family, right? There's 7 of you, I think.
Seven of us siblings, yes. 5 sisters and 1 brother, which wasn't easy growing up with 5 sisters. But I made it through without any major injuries or mental issues.
I was thinking about raising 7 kids. I mean, did your family have a lot of money coming up?
No, quite the opposite. We were a little bit on the poor side, I guess you would say. We never went without. My parents always found a way to make things come together. And my dad worked as a milkman for some years, and then hauled water, delivered water, I should say, the 5-gallon bottles of water. And so he had a route up in Claremont that he would deliver water. And then after that, he got into selling the water coolers. And when that started coming about, because at the original ones, it was just a crock type of a container that the bottle sat on, and it was always just room temperature.
Yeah.
But then came in the cooling of the and the heating.
Those
of the
got
water.
real big, huh?
Yeah,
Those were the next level. Milkman, I feel like that's not a thing anymore, right? I mean,
no, not in my world anyway.
I kind of was surprised by that. A milkman. I didn't even know you could make a living doing that. I know you hear about that, but it's like, delivery services were probably a lot bigger early on. I mean, we have them now, but just everything's, DoorDash this and I don't know. Amazon has made it to where everything shows up in 12 hours, and it's crazy.
Well, the interesting thing about that, and just a little tidbit here, is that I remember I was probably 11 or 12 years old, and I remember this so distinctly. It's interesting that it would stick in my mind, but my dad came home and said, "Betty," who's my mom, "Betty, we did real good this year. We made $11,000.
Oh my goodness.
And I remember thinking $11,000 back then versus now, 7 kids, the whole idea of that. We owned our home, we didn't rent. But like I said, everything everything was tight. That's
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, that's a big deal to own a home, and but how do you own a house big enough for a family of 9? And I mean, I'm sure being spread out, the people are aging out or what, moving out, and it sounds like straight out of high school, you entered the workforce.
Mm.
Was that kind of driven by, hey, you got to go make your own money at an early age? Was that kind of part of the family dynamic?
Absolutely. Nothing was given to you. You had to earn it.
Mm-hmm.
The house that we lived in was a 3-bedroom, 1 bath.
Oh my goodness.
And you're right. Some of the older siblings, my 2 sisters in particular, they were out of the house before my younger 2 sisters were around. So
Okay.
mainly there was 5 kids and mom and dad, and the 1 bathroom was a challenge, of course. But no, what as far as the out of high school, I always even in high school, I worked for a guy doing concrete work,
Okay.
and mainly it was up in Ramona. We were expanding up there. They were building quite a bit, and we would head up there. I would head up there after school was out, work 3 or 4 hours, and then on the weekend, work the hours with them. And that's kind of where I got my construction start.
Gotcha.
It was cement work, doing foundations and things like that.
So is that what you did straight out of high school, was continue with construction in concrete?
Correct. Yeah. When I graduated when I was 17, not quite 18 yet. And I ended up going to contractor school, got my C8 contractor's license, which is masonry, concrete.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, I ended up buying the company, or the equipment, I should say, of the person that I worked
Wow.
for
Yeah.
at 19. And so I was had my own little business at 19.
Man.
And got married when I was 19, and my wife was 18, Debbie. So we started ourselves out and had a little business going.
Wow. That's so amazing to me, to buy a business at 19. Like, right out the gate, you kind of had an entrepreneurial spirit. Maybe, born out of necessity, or just is that just how you're wired, is like just to kind of keep moving forward and take chances on things? Or did you know other people that owned businesses, or, I mean, how did that come about?
No, really I didn't. My family was pretty much with the friends that we had and whatnot. They were all, 8 to 5 type workers, either delivery or in the office, retail, things like that. So it wasn't something that came from an outside source or influence. It was more, I think, I always felt like I wanted to do better than my parents. I wanted to have a
Yeah.
life that was different than what I had as a child.
Gotcha. I was wondering if that was part of the motivation, is, growing up, yeah, you had everything you needed, but wanting more, it can be a great motivating factor. And I was just curious if that's part of what, just kind of that ambition, that drive.
Mhm. Absolutely.
So then you do construction for a little while. How do you make a transition then, and when, into sales, and what type of sales?
Well, in late 70s, things got pretty tough in the construction industry. Interest rates started really
Oh,
going
yeah.
up. And so out of necessity, by then we had one daughter that was about 2 years old, and one that was either on the way or just born. She was born in December of 79. So I had to really look at what I was going to do, to fend for my family,
Yeah.
to supply what they needed, housing, food, everything else. And so at that point in time, construction dropped way out. So I ended up getting a job with a wholesale nursery called Green Thumb Nurseries. And I was a delivery guy.
Okay.
I delivered plants and to the all the different types of retails, independents and chain stores. And I did that for, I don't know, maybe a couple years, and then ended up getting into being distribution manager at that same nursery. The nursery ended up getting purchased by a larger nursery. And then I got the opportunity to move into sales.
Okay.
And that's when I moved into sales somewhere in the probably 83, 84,
Mm-hmm.
1983, 1984, somewhere in there.
Is it something that you were interested in, or you just kind of stumbled into? And I mean, I'm just thinking, because you got to be good at sales to be successful in sales, right?
Yeah, well, again, I think it was driven by financially
Yeah.
motivated, driving truck, even in distribution. The guys out there selling the material, the plants and whatnot were making more money than I was.
Yeah.
So it was really motivated by wanting to do better.
Yeah. So, but in that transition, did you find success in sales? Did you find you were good at it? And
Absolutely. It's interesting because sales is really about relationships.
yeah.
And I guess I came across pretty trustworthy to people and built rapport, built a lot of friendships through the process of that. And, in our case, you would see that same person 2 or 3 times a week
Yeah.
because that inventory plants is, it goes quick. Either it turns or it dies.
Yeah.
So we were having to have fresh product brought in all the time, and so I would see these folks 2 or 3 times a week, and built rapport with them, built
Yeah.
relationships with them. Even today, 40 years later, whatever it is,
Yeah.
I still have friends that are in the horticulture industry, and still see them, periodically.
Right.
So some of those relationships have really lasted a long time.
That's awesome. Yeah. You really get to know people when you're servicing, I guess, an account, but you're dealing with the same person for years and years and years.
Mm-hmm.
How long were you in sales then?
So the sales part of it lasted probably another 3 or 4 years. And then as far as route sales,
Okay.
then I moved into doing key account or national account sales. I got the opportunity to be part of a sales team that would go to Home Depot, Target, Walmart, Lowe's.
Oh, wow. Selling to the big guys.
Selling to the big guys, and traveling to Bentonville, Arkansas, traveling to Atlanta for Home Depot, things like that, and selling them really more of the programs for the year opposed to just the product.
Yeah.
And working on pricing, working on increases for the next year, special events that we would do with the stores themselves at the store level, but it was all booked or sold at the corporate level.
Yeah. Wow. That's pretty amazing. Yeah. So the company that you started with got bought out. And then you ended up with kind of a local grower though, right? Is that a different company?
Yes. So I can't really put the year on it. I think it was around 94.
Okay.
1994, got the opportunity to go to a local wholesale grower, Martinez Farms. Richard Martinez was the owner. He was wanting to expand.
Yeah.
At the time, he was doing probably about $1.2 million in sales. But I had a lot of contacts, and he knew it. And I think he wanted me to help grow his business by my contacts and getting us into some of the bigger chains and expanding his product line. And so we did. We went into Target, sold them a program.
So he poached you. He's
I
did
guess that would be it.
Was he
Yeah.
headhunting and
Y-
enticed you to come over, or?
Yeah, pretty much,
Yeah.
pretty much.
Okay.
In the one that I was working for at the time, Color Spot had gotten in and out of some financial issues,
Yeah.
and they were reorganizing, and there was a lot of uncertainty there as far as longevity and where they were going. So the Martinez Farms, the new opportunity posed itself, and it looked inviting. I mean, it looked like,
Yeah.
hey, I can go and help this guy
Yeah.
build his business and do some good,
Yeah.
and we
And
did.
And you did, right?
Yeah, yeah. So I stayed 7 years with him. No, 10 years with him. Excuse me, 10 years with him. And when I left, we were doing almost $8 million in sales,
Wow.
up from 1.2. So we had a nice increase.
Yeah, you did.
Expanded the product line, automated some of the processes with plugs and robotics and things like that were coming into play pretty heavy. So we did some of that, and delivery systems with lift gates and rolling racks, opposed to hanging off the side of a truck and pulling
Yeah.
stuff out of the racks. So there was a lot of different innovations, if you will, that we brought into it and implemented that made him more successful.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think you said it was 94, 95, something like that. I think that's when I first met you, actually. Didn't know you were going to be my father-in-law at the time, but then, got married your daughter in 99. And I remember there was, shortly after that, you started talking about getting into a different kind of sales and thinking about going into real estate. You made that jump in what year? Do you remember?
Well, I started dabbling in it in 2002.
Okay.
I kept my job with Martinez Farms. By that time, to be honest, it was almost like I could do it with one hand tied behind my back. I mean, it was on
You had it pretty well,
pilot, so to speak. So I could put some time into my real estate business also, in which I did, and that was in 2002. In 2004 is when I quit completely and went full time into real estate. I actually was licensed in 1986.
Oh, wow.
I got my real estate license back then and dabbled in it a little bit for about a year and a half, 2 years, mainly selling or helping family members or close friends buy or sell. But it wasn't really in business. It was just more of a hobby.
Yeah. I remember I was pretty amazed by the courage I felt like to re-career at that stage. And really, I mean, I know you had the confidence. You experienced it before in the 80s. You knew you could have relationships, which is, real estate is sales. It's relationships. And but it was pretty amazing to see you make that jump and then have such a successful career in building your real estate team and just over the course of the next, I guess, close to 20 years. You're retired now, right? But or close to it, semi-retired. I don't know. I mean, but so
depends on who you ask.
Yeah, right. So, walk us through a little bit of that, like growing pain phase of being in a new career and getting that rolling.
Sure. So, in 2002, when I first started dabbling in it, I thought I could do both jobs. I thought,
Right.
I can do this. I can sell some real estate. I can stay in Martinez Farms. And so from 2002 to 2004, I did, but it was limited.
Mm-hmm.
It really never took off to the point that I wanted it to. It was always kind of a grind. I'd have a client come along, help them either buy or sell, and then I'd sit and think, okay, where's my next client going to come from? It was one of those situations to where you work yourself into a job and then you work yourself out of that job, and then you're looking again for a new job. Almost.
Right.
So in 2004, it just came to the point to where I knew I had to go full time. I could not continue to go down the road that I was going if I wanted to make that my next career.
Yeah, you're kind of serving two masters, right? And you got to make a full commitment at that point.
Absolutely, absolutely. And even today, people ask me, hey, I can do this, and I could do a little real estate on the side. And I said, you can do that, but you won't be successful, really.
Right.
I said, I tell them, I said, like I've experienced it. I know that it takes full-time commitment and a lot of hard work, a lot of time
Mm-hmm.
to build any type of a real estate business that's worth having.
Right.
So that's what we did. We, when I say we, my wife Debbie also joined me at that time,
Mm-hmm.
and she was the office gal and did all the what we call TC work, transaction coordinating work, and I was out doing the sales and the marketing and negotiating and everything else that comes with the real estate. And at that point in time in 2004, one of the other agents in our office had brought me to a convention, if you will.
Okay.
It was Brian Buffini's
Oh, yeah.
mastermind, and that really opened my eyes to how to do business.
Right.
It wasn't high pressure. It wasn't, again, making 100 calls a day. Some people do that. Some people can be very successful at that. But it has to fit your personality,
Yeah.
who you are. And through my relationship building over the years in my other sales opportunities, I knew that what I needed to do was build relationships.
Right.
And so with his program, I jumped in with both feet, started implementing his marketing and sales program, which included phone calls, but it was to who you knew.
Okay.
It was building relationships through your database of who you knew, either businesses, personal relationships, whatever it may be. And then from there, we would do what we called notes. So when we would meet with somebody for lunch or have a conversation with somebody, we would send out a personal note.
Okay.
And personal notes, people don't throw those away generally, or at least they'll look at them
Right.
and know that you wrote a personal note to them.
Sure.
It meant something to them. So we would do that, and then also have client parties and different appreciations. So that was kind of the program, and it started to take off pretty good.
Was the Buffini? It's a marketing program, or was it more like a business coaching, or because it sounds like it's a convention style, but you also found that you needed outside, I guess, ideas or help in a way to catapult you into growing, right? So do they do one-on-one consulting or coaching, or is it just like a marketing program that you follow?
No, they absolutely do marketing. They're, coaching. They have group coaching,
Okay.
and then they have one-on-one. And I did get into that also.
Okay.
I initiated that early on. The systems that they had for you to work with were critical. I mean, they really, really made a difference.
Yeah.
Kept you focused, kept your front of mind when it came to people that you were sending things out to or communicating with, or the touch that you were doing with them. Kept you front of mind so that when somebody that they were around or themselves, family member, whoever said, "Man, I'm thinking about buying a house,"
Yeah.
they would think of you.
Your name was on their lips.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was front of mind. So you came up and they would say, "Hey, I know the guy."
Yeah. How critical is it to have that outside resource, though? Not going it alone and having somebody that has an idea that's proven, and how impactful was that to your growth and success?
Well, I think significantly.
Yeah.
And I think that it's not cheap.
Okay.
It's an investment.
Yeah.
The investment, though, paid huge dividends.
Mm-hmm.
I was in coaching for about 6 years,
Okay.
one-on-one.
That's a decent chunk of time.
Yes. Yes. And during that time, though, my business went from, doing 14, 15 transactions to doing 30 transactions.
Yeah, double.
So it really did double, in that amount of time. Had that coaching not been there, the systems not been there, I don't think I would have grown like that.
Yeah. Do you think you still would have stayed in it and just not been as successful and just kind of limped along? Or do you think you would have gotten to where you got eventually, just it would have taken longer?
I believe that, well, I was sold. I mean, I wasn't going anywhere.
Yeah.
This was what I wanted to do until
Yeah.
I retired. So I wasn't going to be leaving the real estate industry. I had to find a way.
You were going to find a way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And whether it was this or another program, I would have had to do something like Tom Ferry. A lot of people do that program also, but that's all about calls, cold calling, robocalls and all of that type of thing, which didn't fit my personality.
Right. That sounds pretty brutal. If you're not good at that, and that would be rough.
Exactly. And you have, dialogues that you memorize and you talk about that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it didn't fit me. So I knew that this was the program for me. I knew that it was the one that was going to help me be successful. And it did.
Yeah.
And so when we got to a certain point of doing those transactions, I decided that I needed to bring on another sales agent,
Okay.
buyer's agent.
Yeah.
And so we did. We brought on another agent, put her through the same program, watched her become successful.
Yeah.
And after a little while, of being successful, they leave the nest.
They move on. Yeah.
They move on, and and it was just a process of probably 3 different agents that came through that we would work with, and then they would move on. And then finally, probably 10 years in, I started deciding I wanted to really expand into a team, build more of a team. And so at that point in time, Debbi decided that she was done with the business, and I brought on an assistant, and then we ended up bringing on 2 other agents, and then I took on a partner eventually.
Yeah.
And at one point in time, we were total, there was 6 or 7 of us out there.
Built a pretty good team.
Doing business, yeah. And we had success. They were all doing fairly good, and we had our good times and our bad times, because we would, the market goes up and down, and you have to be ready for the slow times also, and that was a challenge. A lot of agents don't do that. They don't realize that you're going to have the low times. They like riding the wave up, but they don't like going over the other side.
Yeah, every time you set a new high, they just assume this is your new norm.
Mm-hmm.
That's what at least that's what I've seen. So you would probably, if somebody was starting out in real estate, you would advise getting plugged in with somebody who has a coaching, some sort of support system to get you going, and not just flounder, figuring it out on your own. You got to get plugged in that to be successful.
Yeah, I believe so. Whether it's a mentor or a coach, some sort of a accountability.
Yeah.
To where you are being given some directives,
right?
Some help and guidance, and then find what system works for you, and be completely. I'm missing a word here. Consistent with it.
Okay.
Consistency is the key.
Yeah, I feel like, I'm hearing you say all this, and I'm thinking, man, this is true. It's true in life in general.
Mm-hmm.
You need mentorship. You need consistency, because it's the accumulation of your efforts over time. And so you got to do the same thing over and over before you see that really snowball effect of your results.
Yes.
And I've worked with a business coach. He's not in my industry. It doesn't matter. It's, as you say, it's accountability. It's kind of an outside perspective. They have experience helping people grow in their leadership, in their marketing, in their organization, their systems. Um, and I absolutely noticed the same thing, exponential growth within my company and also personally. It's like you start to get a little more organized in your business and you realize, well, both have to be organized, personal and business, because for me, they bleed. I don't do a great job, separating. They kind of feel like they're commingled. So anyways, yeah, I would echo that same thing as you got to get plugged in with somebody, and that accountability is so valuable. It's interesting. You brought in a partner. I don't know that when I hear people build teams in real estate, people having partners, I don't know that I quite understood that initially before you did it, how that all works. And what did you see as the benefit of actually having a partner involved instead of just only team members?
So my motive on bringing in a partner was more of a succession
Okay.
outlook. By then I was hitting my 60s,
Yeah.
and I was thinking more of, okay, how do I keep this Genuine Home Team, which is the name of our team,
Yeah.
going, and hand the baton off to somebody else to run it when I no longer want to or unable to.
Right.
And so that was my motivation to bring in a partner, was more of having them work right alongside of me, learn the processes and how I like to do business, the understanding of how I look at clients, how I want to be respected into the market. All those things are important. So I had to find somebody that was like-minded.
Yeah.
Somebody that had the same values, same understanding of customer service. And that wasn't easy to do.
Yeah.
You think that this person is like you, but when you really get into it, you kind of strip away the peeling a little bit, it's not. And so you got to find somebody that meets you right where you're at, and be able to teach them and guide them and give them the outlook that you did on your clients and on your business.
Yeah. So they're getting treated the same. There's that same feel, right? So the reputation transfer and all of that is intact.
Right.
And so your motivation behind getting that partner is somebody to hand it off to, and that they're going to treat the people well, how you would have treated them.
Correct.
And so you're not just essentially disappearing, when you retire, right?
Right.
It's amazing. In small business in general, you don't think about, you can't just one day up and retire. You need to have a plan. And if you don't have that kind of off-ramp plan to ramp down, it can be pretty painful, or you can feel pretty trapped. And it can end up hurting a lot of people of your team or clients. And so it's kind of cool that you started thinking about that ahead of time, and that it's been almost 2 years?
It'll be actually 3 years in February.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Time flies. What kind of steps, or what led you to start thinking about, or ultimately end up retiring? Because it seemed like something that you could do for a while. You seem to enjoy it. You're good at it. You like people. What made you retire?
Well, actually, family tragedy.
Yeah.
We were pretty much planning on staying right here in San Diego. And we had our house that we thought we'd retire in and live the rest of our life in. And business was going good. I mean, every year we had increases. Every year the team was doing good. My partner was doing good. Everything was pretty much set in place to where things were like you would want them to be.
Yeah.
And then during the COVID time period, my son-in-law Joe caught COVID, went into the hospital, and basically never came out.
Yeah.
And him and my daughter Annie and our granddaughter Samantha, they moved to Texas in 2012.
Okay.
And so, we had gone back there several times in a year to see him and to, build our relationship with our granddaughter and do all of that. And so, when that happened, my wife Debbie and I, we were just going, okay, what do we do? I mean, it's like Annie and Sam are there by themselves now. They don't have Joe anymore. And so we really felt that God had put it on our heart to move to Texas,
Right.
to go there, to support them, to be of help to them. And, in whatever ways they needed, but it was without a doubt heavy on our hearts, and it didn't
Yeah.
let up.
Yeah, I remember talking about it, and the way I would characterize it is like it was a calling. It absolutely didn't make sense as far as if you're looking at planning, the height of your career, everything's humming along, real estate's cranking. As you said, I mean, you were in a great spot. And then to say, I know what I'll do. I'm gonna change everything, uproot my life, and move to Texas. And yet you were unwavering in that. Like, it never was a doubt in your mind. So that's why I say it seemed like a calling, and absolutely been a God thing, I think, for you guys to be there and support and help navigate the grief period and the just all that Samantha's going through in growing up, going through middle school, becoming a high schooler. Like, that's a lot to deal with. Now that you've been out there and you've kind of seen, I guess it's been almost 3 years, right?
Correct. Be 3 years in March.
You guys moved fast, really, once you made the decision. Now that you're out there, how are you liking Texas?
Well, having the opportunity to travel out there like we did for that 9 years prior to heading that direction, we did get to see Texas and experience Texas, and we really did like it. I mean, we still do love it.
Yeah,
I should say. I mean, it's really growing on us. We found that just the culture, if you will, the neighborhood that Annie and Joe had lived in, and Annie still lives there. The people were very, very open and very welcoming, very kind.
yeah,
Just the whole thing of Texas and its, I mean, they're one proud state, and you can't get away from that,
yeah.
But yeah, we fell in love with it, and we still love it. I mean, we do. We miss San Diego quite a bit when it comes to friends and, of course, family.
Yeah.
You guys, but we're still making the trips out here now,
Yeah.
3, 4, or 5 times a year. So that's worked out well. And, back to your comment about it being a calling, I mean, my wife and I, we put a lot of stock in our faith, in who we trust, and and we trusted in Jesus a long, long time ago, and brought our kids and family all up in time with our faith, and so with us it was without a doubt that was the direction that we needed to go.
Yeah.
And so, with that in mind, everything else seemed to not be as important,
Sure.
and with the need back there and God leading us in that direction and feeling very strong about that, we knew that without a doubt, it was the right thing to do. And everybody that we shared that with agreed. I mean, it wasn't like anybody came and said, "You guys are making a big mistake. Don't do this," or whatever. So it was confirmation,
Yeah.
from those around us that that was the right thing that we needed to do. And so since then, we moved there. We bought a lot and we built a house,
Yeah.
and we're basically 2 acres, 4 acres, whatever it is, down from Annie and Sammy,
Yeah.
and so we're connected pretty much close to them, and have influence in them. We lived with them for a year while we built,
Oh man.
and that was at times challenging, but at the same time, the so to speak, the mission field
Yeah.
that we were in at the time, and now we're involved. I basically take her to school every morning
Oh wow.
until she gets to drive, hopefully in another year. Take her to school and drop her off. And school over in Texas starts early. It starts at 7:15, so we're out the door at 6:15.
Oh man.
And so it's an early day, and
You're like co-parenting then, in a way. Like you're out there as the family unit now.
yeah, and Debbie was very wise in saying, the masculine part of it was needed.
Mm-hmm.
There was a father figure that was needed out there at the time, and she said, if nothing else, just to be present,
Yeah.
just to be there.
Yep.
And so we felt that, and I felt that, and it's been parenting, but yet at the same time grandparenting. So there's this kind of like how do you find the balance there? Sometimes it's
Right.
a little bit challenging, to say
Well,
the
especially
least.
at that age, the season of life that she's at, too. It's challenging regardless, and then you're trying to navigate the grief component. You guys being uprooted, trying to fill something, but also not step on toes, and
Mhm.
yeah, it just seems not simple or clear cut. And
Mhm.
so yeah, just navigating it. I mean, it is pretty amazing. Just how selfless it was, though, for you guys to do that and not complain, and really be uncomfortable for a long time. I mean, be essentially homeless, but you got to build a really cool house.
Mhm.
You're no stranger really to, I mean, real estate investment, building. You've built a few homes now.
Right. Yeah. This is actually our third home that we've built. Our first one was in 1986. We bought a lot up in Pine Valley, and family affair.
Mm-hmm.
My father-in-law was a cabinet maker. My brother-in-law, Greg, was a general contractor. My brother was an electrician. And so through all the processes of building that house from ground up, it was a family affair. We just did it as a family.
Yeah.
And then when we sold that house, we ended up moving back down into town, into El Cajon, and bought a little house off of Forester Creek Road in El Cajon. And we pretty much stripped it down to nothing, down to studs,
Yeah.
and redid that one. And then in the 2003, in the Cedar Fire, the house got burned to the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so from there, we rebuilt it and built a different style, different house, but rebuilt the whole house.
That was rough.
Yeah, that was a challenge. That was
Yeah.
a challenge for sure. But I during that time, in because everything was lost, everything from what Debbie's grandma had passed down to her, her mom had passed down to her. My dad gave me some things that I cherished, and they were all lost.
Yeah.
But
You guys didn't really have advance notice on that one, if I remember correctly. It was like, hey, fire's close, keep an eye out. And then it was, hey, leave.
Right. So our brother-in-law at the time, Steve, he was monitoring it because he was on the volunteer fire department, and he was monitoring some of the chatter that was going back and forth. And once he told us that it jumped the 8 and was heading up Harbison Canyon, he said, you guys are in danger. And so at the time, we were at a restaurant having lunch after church, and we headed back home, and I loaded some things into the car, or computer towers, just things like that, pictures, some pictures, not a lot, unfortunately, but pictures. And we monitored it. I would go up and check the mountain, watch the fire, see it in a distance, little by little. And then we get a phone call from our daughter, and she said, Dad, they won't let me come home. I said, what do you mean? Annie. And they said that everything's supposed to be evacuated up there.
Oh, my goodness.
I said, well, nobody evacuated us.
We're still here.
We're still here. And so she said, yeah. She said, they said that you need to get out of there. So at that point in time, my wife and I got our dog, put it in the car, and drove out. And then, by the time we got back the next day, the house was down.
Gone.
Yeah,
Completely.
gone.
Yeah, I remember pulling up after you called, because you came to stay with us that night.
Mm-hmm.
You basically packed a night bag.
Right.
You guys didn't pack much of anything.
We didn't plan on that being gone. I
No.
mean, we really thought we were going to be coming back to our house. And the next morning, walking up that Forester Creek Road up La Cresta, we had a big pine tree in our front yard. And that big pine tree was sitting there. And as I came up, I thought, I can see that pine tree.
Yeah.
We're going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be okay. Well, as I got up over the hillside there and looked down, the tree was there, but the house was gone.
Oh, my goodness.
And so, so it was quite a hit. The one thing though is that Debbi and I, we kind of grab on to our faith again.
Yeah.
And we had the understanding that God is enough. And, she asked me, she goes, what are we going to do? I said, we're going on vacation. And she said, what? And I said, yeah. I said, we're going on vacation. We had planned a vacation. All we had to do was make sure we had a place to come back to. So we rented an apartment and went on vacation. And we would run into people or on the plane or whatever, people that ask us, where are you from or whatever. San Diego. Oh, I hear you guys got fires there. Yeah. How'd you guys okay? No, we lost our house. What?
Oh, man.
They were really shocked when we say that. And we would just give them, our understanding that God is enough.
Yeah.
That, all these material things are not that important. What's important is, the things that, eternal things are important. The things of earthly things are not important.
Well, yeah. I mean, you guys learned that firsthand because you really lost a lifetime of basically everything.
Yes, everything.
And yet here you are 21 years later, and I don't know that a whole lot of that, you're sitting there on a daily basis going, man, I really miss this thing or that thing. Or
Never crosses my mind.
Right? I think that's something that is important for people to hear sometimes is getting to the other side of it.
Mm-hmm.
It being, some crisis or struggle of some sort. And that really the other side, whether it's a year or 10 or whatever it is, the other side is there.
Yeah.
And it's not you wouldn't want to go live through that again, but it's not as big as it felt in the moment.
Right. At the moment, it was, almost a shock,
Yeah.
if you will, because you never think that your house is going to burn down and everything in it. You start completely over.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it takes a process. It takes time, to work through all that. But when you're out of it and you look back, it's life.
Yeah.
Things happen.
Yeah,
You
it's
know, you're
strangely,
tested.
yeah.
It's a test, and do you pass the test or do you fail the test?
Mm, yeah. It, it happens in a lot of different ways, but it's interesting. I was just talking to a client. The test happens in a lot of different ways. I was talking to a client, and they were getting their house re-roofed, and the torch from the roofer caught
Mm.
the attic on fire, and they're living inside working, and roofer jumps off and is pounding on the door, get out of the house, the attic's on fire. And so we were just walking that with them. We just built their new house for them, and they were sharing the few items that were salvaged that the
Mm.
firefighters went in and pulled out for them. Some pretty great photos, damaged, but it's pretty cool to see some of that was pulled out of there. There wasn't anything left that I could see. I remember seeing a chimney at your house, and I think you just had your bathroom shower tile redone, and
Right.
that was still standing.
Right. Right.
And but were you able to salvage anything out of the rubble?
No, not really. I mean, we had friends, family, church members that wanted to, help us through this process, and
Yeah.
so we had a sifting party,
Okay.
and there was probably maybe 15 of us or so over there, maybe 20, and looking through stuff, seeing what we could find, and pretty much everything that was found was more sentimental, like a teacup or something. It wasn't like anything of much.
Yeah.
Uh, it looked like really when I look at it, it looked like a bomb had hit it.
Yeah.
And like you said, the chimney was there, and the one wall of the bathroom that tiled was standing. But other than that, everything else was down to probably 6 or 8 feet of nothing.
Yeah.
You know,
It was crazy.
just
It looked like a war
ash.
zone. Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It was really devastating. Yeah, it's hard to wrap your head around, or try and explain things like that. Like you're saying, it's life. There's going to be tests. There's going to be struggles,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it really is about how you make it through them, rather than your reaction to it
Mhm.
is huge. And I think that was yet another example of people around you seeing how you guys responded, and seeing your faith shine through that, because you seem strong through it. So, I think there's a lot of examples that I've been a witness to see that.
Mm.
At this stage, your things are calming down, and you've had all of your kind of crazy. I mean, you've had a lot of adventure, a lot of business, a lot of success. What kind of keeps you motivated now? What are you looking forward to in the future? Like at this stage of retirement,
Mhm.
what are you leaning into for the enjoyment of it? And I mean, because you're still kind of raising a kid in a way right now,
Mhm.
but do you have anything that you're looking forward to doing in your retirement?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I thought about that quite a while leading up to it.
Yeah,
And initially I knew that a lot of time would be spent on the family
Sure.
with Samantha and Annie, and then building the new house and getting ourselves settled. But like you said, now we are settled, um, and so I started to look to what can I fill my time with. I love to golf, so that's part of it.
yeah,
But what really caught my attention was this organization, Texas Men Disaster Relief. And it's an organization that basically trains people to go out into disaster areas, whether it be a hurricane, a fire, flood, whatever,
yeah,
and to assist and help people there.
yeah,
And so that's something I got involved in.
yeah,
And in fact, just got back from North Carolina, as you know,
yeah,
and had an experience up there of helping some of the families, some of the folks up there that were devastated over this the loss of everything.
Was it a storm that wiped them out up there? A lot of flooding? Is that what it was?
It was, yeah, the hurricane
Yeah.
that came up through there just dumped so much water
Man.
into that west North Carolina and east Tennessee area.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing about floods and water is that, not only do you lose everything, I mean, just devastating of houses being just, gone downstream, lost their foundations and just moved. And, but the soil, the ground is gone.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the other thing with fire or with tornadoes, you basically still have the ground to rebuild on.
Yeah.
But these folks, so much of their ground is gone. It's just a big
That's crazy.
ravine, where the house was.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, I saw a picture floating around of you clearing mud out from underneath the house or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
in your retirement, you're finding ways to still, be busy, but you're giving back and you're helping people who've gone through disasters like you have. I mean, even recently you had a tree fall on your house and take out half or quarter of your house, right?
Right.
From one of the big storms up there in Texas. So you can really empathize with that, but it was really something seeing you under a house with a group of people clearing mud. That was
Yeah, it was a little bit of a challenge, but
Yeah.
it was a good challenge.
Yeah.
I'm a little claustrophobic at times, so it was one of those where I had to really kind of mentally get past that
Oh,
and
yeah.
get under that house. And we were on our basically hands and knees and scuffling along and digging out all the additional soot or not soot, but the soils from the runoff and all of that. And we were digging those with small little shovels and putting it onto a hard plastic little skiff type thing that would pull it out on a string
Oh,
or
yeah.
a rope and then pull it back in and fill it up again.
Oh,
And
man.
then afterwards, we would spray it with stuff that would kill mold and all that underneath there.
Okay.
And then the other days were filled with just cutting and splitting wood because all of their wood for heat and whatnot for the year, a lot of people's went downstream. They lost all that.
Yeah, and I heard they were going to be without power for a very long time.
Yeah. Some of them, as they said, they estimated it not until next spring.
Wow. Yeah. I can't even imagine. I got to ask, I did not know, you mentioned claustrophobia. I didn't know that you had that. Because I was on a job walk the other day and I ended up crawling under a house. I haven't crawled under a house in a long time, but I wanted to check this foundation issue out for myself. And I got 3/4 of the way in there and it hit me. And I said, you know what? I got to get out. I'm out of here. And I mean, it was tight. I mean, it was like your head is in the dirt and squeezing under a pipe, but have you always been a little claustrophobic or?
Yeah. It's one of those things I found out early on that if I think that there's a chance of me like getting stuck or something caving in on me or anything like that, it freaks me out. So I have always had that bit of claustrophobic tendencies, and it's been a challenge.
Oh yeah, it's bad. I mean, I used to take my boys to the caves once a year, and the mud caves out in the desert, and they would take off. They loved it, and I'd get into where it no longer is a big space, and I can't see the light anymore, and I'd just be frozen. I'm like, I'm all done. I did some confined space training through the fire science program at Miramar.
Mm-hmm.
And you can, I guess, kind of acclimate, you can work through a portion of it. But as soon as that mental side of it, as soon
Mm-hmm.
as you feel like, you kind of lose that focus, it takes a lot of focus to stay keep from panicking.
Right.
And they would send us through this kind of, I don't know that you would call it an obstacle course, but it was a simulated confined space. So they'd start you out in a container
Mm.
that's, kind of like a small room, but and it had all these pipes that would go from these containers. And the first pipe is 24 inches. Maybe it was 36. I don't know. Felt like plenty of room to climb through, right?
Right.
And it was okay. And then you get to the 24 and you're getting a little tighter. And at the end, you had to climb through an 18-inch pipe. And I didn't even think I would fit, which you really don't. You have to put your arms over your head and you have to kind of do the worm
Oh man.
to inch your way through it. And there's a bunch of students in there all at once. So it makes it even worse.
Right.
So I turned the corner into that 18-inch pipe. There's a student in front of me, his feet right in my face, and there's somebody coming up right behind me, and I lost it.
Oh man.
So they cut a hole in the top of the pipe to open it, to talk me off of a ledge because I'm foaming at the mouth, just losing it.
Oh.
So when you said claustrophobic, I'm like thinking, man, I know that feeling. And
Yes.
yet you still did it. You made it.
Right. Yes. Yes. And we got all the soil out, and then we had to go back in there with a sprayer, and I was elected to do the spraying, so I got myself all suited up and
Yeah.
put the sprayer on that same little plastic skiff, and that way I could move it around. And luckily, it was a battery operated, so I didn't have to pump it.
Yeah.
And went through there and started spraying, and got about maybe 3/4 of the way through, and I started feeling nauseated.
Uh-oh.
And I didn't know if it was the spray fumes or was I mentally being claustrophobic again,
Yeah.
and it having that effect on me. So I thought, well, hey, I'm a volunteer here. I don't have to prove anything.
Right.
So I basically went to the opening, got out, and said, hey, somebody else has to finish. I'm feeling nauseated. And they were all agreeable, of course. They didn't want me to be in there if I wasn't feeling up to it. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's something I just struggle with.
Yeah.
claustrophobic.
Yeah. I think that's great though to find new ways and ways to still be busy, be involved, and not just kind of I guess go idle. I always envision retirement as like if you're either traveling and it's like this great and now you're on a permanent vacation, or you kind of don't have as much to do. I think a lot of people I've talked to have said, men especially, business, that mission to accomplish
Mhm.
is what's missing in retirement. And so to have something like that's really cool. How did you just decided to look something up, or how did you find that?
It's interesting. I always thought about retiring, and when I did, I was worried about how going from business to no business
Yeah.
was going to affect me and how I was going to be able to handle it,
Mm-hmm.
and what steps I would have to take to fill in, if you will, the non-business part of it.
Yeah.
I mean, family's always there, hobbies are always there, but the business part, I was worried about it,
Sure.
because I had done it so long, and I loved it, and so that was one of my main concerns. But as I got closer to doing it and understanding that God was moving us in that direction, and that we had a task at hand, so to speak,
Yeah.
I think that helped me.
Sure.
Now, as far as the the getting up every morning and all of that, I still do that. That's
Yeah.
still part of my MO
Yeah.
most of the time. And so I found ways to fill in my mornings, whether it's some sort of exercise, quiet time, a combination of both. After taking Samantha to school, But I think that finding that balance is very important.
Yeah.
And so finding a way to give back, like you were mentioning with the Texas Men disaster relief, it was more of a finding something that would be rewarding,
Yeah.
but at the same time something that would bring camaraderie and build relationships.
Sure.
Because the guys that we go out with, I mean, you're with them 24/7, and
Yeah.
so you build that rapport, you build that relationship, you get to know people. And the way that I found it was through our church, Fellowship of Montgomery is a church that Debbi and I found, and we've been attending now for about a year and a half or 2 years now. And it came up and they offered the training, and it spiked my interest. And so I went to the training and thought, yeah, this is something that I think I can do. It was available at my other church here in San Diego,
Yeah.
but because of the time commitment, I never felt like I could do it. I never
Yeah.
felt I could leave my business for, a week and go somewhere and help. So I had that thought in my mind here that when the time came, I may seek something out like
Yeah.
that. And sure enough, the opportunity presented itself and
Yeah.
jumped on it, and I'm enjoying it. I
That's
like
awesome.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good way of keeping busy too, and that's cool that you like it. You said you loved real estate. You loved the business. Do you miss it, and are you still somewhat involved in it?
Yes, I do miss parts of it.
Okay.
There's other parts that I'm kind of glad I don't have to deal with on a day in and day out basis. But I miss the relationships. I miss, handing keys to somebody of a house, or a check to somebody that just sold something.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a gratifying experience because you're helping somebody accomplish a goal that they've had or that they needed to accomplish. I don't really look back on too much of it though,
Yeah.
and I am involved because I still have people that call me.
Mm-hmm.
My partner, Scott Schimpf, he's with Keller Williams there where I was at, and he's still got the Genuine Home Team going. And so anybody that comes that needs real estate help that contacts me, I talk to them, and then I incorporate Scott into the conversation, and basically I work the phones and the computer from Texas, but
Yeah.
Scott's the boots on the ground here and help
Yeah.
people here that need our services. And so that's how we're doing it. It's been successful. It's been working. We've, over the last 2.5 years, I think there's probably been at least 20 or so transactions that took place that way.
Well, yeah, you're still pretty involved then. I
Yeah.
mean, if you're working remotely through Scott, and still having your team intact, that's pretty cool. And but it doesn't have you stuck here and tethered to it. It's only as it shows up organically, so to speak. You're not marketing for that, and
Well, we do a little bit. We still do some touches a year.
Okay.
Christmas cards go out to
Yeah.
everybody. We did have we implemented years ago what we called a pie party, or a gratitude party, where
Oh, yeah.
we would bring in pies and offer pies to folks that we either referred as people or that we had closed transactions with, and,
Yeah.
and to show them how thankful we were for their loyalty and using us. And we still did that. And then we would do a theater or a movie day matinee for the little ones.
Yeah.
And whatever new, G-rated movie that would come out, we would offer people, we would rent out the theater and then have them come and show them appreciation by letting them enjoy the movie.
Okay.
So we still do that a little bit, so those touches are still there, but it's not an everyday thing. It's
Gotcha.
not like, it was. I mean, Scott basically takes care of any additional
Yeah.
information or touches that go out to people.
So you're still pretty in tune though with what's happening in the market and all of that, and
Yes.
you're still seeing what kind of volume is happening. Have you noticed in 24 a difference compared to previous years as far as volume with the interest rates and all of that?
Yeah, 23, with the interest rates and the inflation, as terrible as it was, it took a hit.
Yeah.
Um, 24 bounced back a bit.
Okay.
But it hasn't been, at least for us anyway, it hasn't been our best year by any measure. 22 was a great year. 21, 22 were great years, mainly 22. So 23 dropped off, 40% or so.
Wow.
And then this year, it's bounced back probably 20% over 23, but it still hasn't hit 22 levels.
Yeah.
And that, I think, has to do with interest rates still being higher than what they were in 22. And, the election,
For sure.
that always has either positives or negatives with it. Talking to Scott just this week, he said once the election was over, his phone started ringing off the hook. So
And then do you think that's interesting because you wouldn't, we all know election years are going to have an impact. People are kind of just waiting to see one way or the other get out of a holding pattern and just know at least what leadership we're going to have. Do you think that the phone was ringing because the election was over, regardless of who, because that's now the uncertainty's gone, or do you think it was actually the outcome that created that volume?
Well, I think that reading, the way that President-elect Trump took most of the states that were, considered in jeopardy or could go either way.
Battleground states. Yeah.
The fact that he took those and even got, I think it was 40 or in the low 40% vote of all of California.
Yeah.
I think it was him being elected that made the turn.
Okay.
The change. I think people would not have reacted quite so dramatically if the status quo would have continued with Vice President Harris. So I think it was a Trump election that prompted that.
I've asked several people that, and because they talk about their investments or they talk about their business, and I've heard several business owners tell me the same thing: call volumes shooting way up. And I just think it's interesting. Like, is that an election year? Hey, uncertainty's over in terms of who's going to win, or is that the actual outcome? And I would say 80 to 90% of people I've talked to on both sides of the political leaning believe that the uptick is because of the outcome, not just it being reconciled in terms of uncertainty. So, yeah, I just thought that was interesting. I just know, being here in San Diego, affordability, I mean, we were talking earlier, and it's just like, yes, cost of living's gone up everywhere. And when I say everywhere, from my understanding, it's not just the United States. It's globally. Cost of living's gone up. But there's pockets that experience it worse than others. And I feel like San Diego, in terms of affordability, we have a lot of young people working in our company, and the idea or promise of eventually being able to afford a home seems to be slipping away. You've been in real estate, you've been in construction, you've been in San Diego your whole life. Is this a cycle like any other, and affordability will open back up, or is there just a period of time where they're just going to have to wait for things to catch up?
Sure. I believe that it's still supply and demand to some degree.
Yeah.
There's still not enough housing in San Diego. I mean, there's been some different uh, amendments or things that have changed that have allowed, granny flats and multiple units to be
Yeah.
put on and things like that, which will help. But I still think it's a supply and demand, partially as far as the prices continue to go up. The other thing that we noticed during 1920, 21, it seemed like we were having an influx of people coming out of San Francisco, Silicon
That's
Valley,
right.
places like that, which they were relocated here because they could do it mobily.
Yeah.
And when they did, they were coming from even a higher priced market
Yeah.
into this, so they had no qualms about
Paying more.
Yep, yeah, bidding up houses and doing things like that. I think that had an effect on the pricing. You have BlackRock, is that? Yeah, I think it's called BlackRock, who's buying up quite a bit of the rentals and houses for rentals,
Yeah.
things like that, which has a negative effect on home ownership, in my opinion. So I think it's a combination of all of that that has kept the prices as high as they are.
Yeah.
I don't have a crystal ball. I don't
Sure.
know what's going to happen, if it's going to continue. But at the same time, businesses have left California. People have left California. We'll have to see how it all plays out.
Yeah.
I mean, California could have a turnaround
Yeah.
for sure, and have a more conservative perspective of policies and government and all of that, and that would probably have an effect on everything, including housing.
Yeah. Because I have a hard time seeing the light at the end of the tunnel for young people trying to get into their first home,
Mhm.
But, I go back 25, 26 years when I first started thinking about entering, the real estate market. And it didn't seem as insurmountable as it does now. Um, and I'm putting myself, proportionately, if you just kind of ramp everything up dollar for dollar, adjusted for inflation, and put yourself in the same position right now, I couldn't do in this environment what I did back then. So it seems more hostile
Mhm.
than ever before to me. And that's why I'm curious, and I'm asking, being that you've been in San Diego since, born and raised,
Mhm.
me too, native San Diegans, but it seems to be spreading though too. It's not just California. I know California
Mhm.
seems to be the lead. But when you make a move to Texas and you bring you're acclimated to California prices
Mhm.
and you bring your California equity to a Texas market, it's really easy to overspend. It's really easy to be desensitized and go over there and effectively start to change that market too.
Correct.
Do you
Yeah.
see any of that happening in Texas?
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that, especially the last 2 years, I would say,
Yeah.
we've seen, a lot of not only just Californians, but New Yorkers, people coming from all parts of Chicago.
Yeah.
I've met people over there, whether it's at a restaurant, at the gym, or whatever, that have moved in recently. So they're bringing, their perspective of pricing and
Right.
housing. And so, yeah, we've definitely seen Texas real estate go up. It settled some, I would say, in 24.
Okay.
But it's not like we're seeing, I mean, San Diego, California real estate. If you were doing a 10-15% increase, it was a no-brainer. It was just like, okay, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
There, if you're doing a 6, 7, 8% increase, it's whoa, prices are going up.
Right.
They have that whole, because for so long, a 2 to 3% increase was average and good for them.
Right.
But yeah, we're definitely seeing More industry come to Texas when you look at what, Elon Musk moved his company there. Chevron, I think, was the latest to move part of it into different areas. But I mean, Chevron's been there for some time. But the different companies that have come there have brought executives, high end kind of people that are moving there now, and prices are going up. There's no
Right.
doubt about it.
Yeah.
There's where we live, outside of where we live anyway, the Woodlands. I mean, they're averaging over $1 million for a house now,
Jeez.
and
Yeah.
that wasn't the case, 5-6 years ago.
Not at all. Yeah.
So there's definitely a trend that
Mhm.
we see going into the Texas market. Austin is another great example of that over the last 10 years, what their market has done. So yeah, and I think coming back to that whole COVID time period where everybody was working, from home or
Yeah.
whatever, it made a big difference for people to be able to relocate. And
Yeah, you get paid the same, live somewhere that's a lot cheaper,
exactly,
didn't impact your pay. I mean, that
right,
a lot of people took advantage of that. I
right.
mean, I wouldn't want to leave San Diego personally for the weather and quality of life,
Mm.
activities, all that kind of stuff. But also, I love San Diego. I mean, I really am passionate about the community and,
Mhm.
want to be a part of the solution.
Mhm.
If all the people that we need leave, then we're going to get even worse. So
Mhm.
I feel like, being in construction, we can be a part of the solution in many ways because we can help build our way out of this. So help
Mm.
with the ADUs or new home construction. I don't know if we'll ever be able to catch up. It seems like the shortage is just so great and
Mhm.
growing.
Mhm.
But yeah, my hope is to see the next generation be able to experience that dream of home ownership. I don't know, at this point, I'm in the same boat. I don't have a crystal ball, but I really do look at it and go, man, I don't see this ever getting to a point where you're going to be able to have a 20-something-year-old buy a house again. You're looking at, as you say, a lot of people coming in with their money
Right.
and just driving this market up, and supply and demand is still a huge issue. But I think, the starter mentality has also been lost. People want to jump straight into that dream home.
Mm-hmm.
How did you get into your first real estate purchase?
Yeah, that takes me way back. But yeah,
Way back.
So first of all, the affordability here in San Diego and in California as a whole is one of the highest in the country. I mean, so you're right. First time home buyers have a tough go of it.
Yeah.
So my wife and I, we were looking to get off the rent and to find something that we could buy, something that we could live in. And we ended up buying a mobile home
Okay.
/ manufactured home, if you will,
Yeah.
in a park up in Guatai.
Okay.
And
A little bit out there.
yeah, a little bit out there. And so that was our first purchase into buying something that we owned,
Mm-hmm.
that we could live in. And we did a little fixing up and kind of refurbished it and did this and that. And we stayed there for 3 years and we sold it and we made a little bit of money off of it.
Yep.
And so that gave us the idea, wow, okay, you can fix things up and
Get some sweat equity out of it. And
exactly.
yeah.
So we ended up doing that, and then from that we took the money and bought a piece of property, piece of land, and that's the first time that we built a house,
Okay.
and that was through when I mentioned the family and
Yeah.
everybody doing it together. And we stayed in that house. We sold that house, and when we did, we bought another house down there in fixed it up, and pretty much had equity building as we went.
Yeah.
The big equity was in the house we built in Pine Valley to start with. I think we had lot was 35,000, and I think it cost us 51,000 to build it.
Jeez.
Yeah, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,800 square feet on that 3rd-acre land, and we sold it. We sold it for 220, and we had like 85 into it, and so that was the equity where the equity started building for us. And then once we got into the house and I got into real estate, I started looking at opportunities. And one of the opportunities that came really was during the 09, 2010, 2011, where, prices dropped, banks were dealing, short sales, foreclosures were up, all of that.
A little bit of a reset, or quite a bit of a reset.
Quite a bit of a reset. I mean, we're looking 40% in some cases.
Yeah.
And so so that's when I started hunting for some rentals, some properties to be able to invest in. And so we stretched ourselves a little bit on the equity in our home, and bought a couple rentals, and that was kind of our foot into the investment properties.
Yeah.
And then as we went through the process with you, and we did
a few
flips
together, and
did some. Yeah,
you guys helped us actually get into our first condo.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
So started way back then.
Yeah, and that was that 99 or was that 2000?
99.
Yeah.
Yeah.
99. Yeah.
Yeah. I just wonder if the expectation is too high then for some of the people starting out, because to go to somebody and say, hey, why don't you start 45 minutes out of town in a trailer?
Mm-hmm.
Most people aren't going to be willing to make that sacrifice to spend 2 or 3 years in that boat to get a little bit of equity, to get the next foothold into the next thing. And, Pine Valley's a little closer, not much, right, than Guatai? Or about the same?
Actually, it's the opposite. But yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Guatai's as you go to the top of the hill, and then as you come down, you're going to hit Pine Valley.
Okay.
On the other side.
Well, still on the outskirts, though.
Yes, definitely.
And so, I mean, as beautiful as it is, I don't know that it's like, especially 30 years ago, was considered the most desirable area.
Right.
So, again, I think it's sacrifice, it's tempering your expectations, paying your dues, and then you enter into the investment world of real estate after you're on your 3rd or 4th home, after you're established in your career, and now you're finally able to start looking at accumulating rentals. Also in the time frame where it's probably the most conducive time to do it.
Yes.
In that reset.
Yes.
So yeah, I don't know. I'm just kind of processing that, realizing part of entering the market is sacrifice. And so hopefully that's something that younger people will start to consider to do.
Right.
Maybe there's a reset that comes, makes it, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know.
I know. Well, I think you nailed it on the the nail on the head there when the expectation.
Yeah.
Lowering expectation is a must to get into the start. In this day and age, it just seems like everything is what's the right word? Not necessarily given, but not necessarily really earned either. There's this mentality that I deserve, or that I should be, living in a place such as my parents live, where your parents have sweated and worked through things for 30 years, and now, so it takes time and it takes effort. And I think that, that mentality is gone almost. I mean, there may be some out there that still look at that and will do that, but like you were referring to, very few. So I think that the alternative to that obviously is to, and we see it now, multiple families living in one property.
Right.
That's also, or parents helping their children get into a property somehow.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't see it. I, I I don't see it nearly as available as it was, 20 years ago,
Yeah.
15 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, things have definitely changed, and it's gotten much, much more stringent and harder for young people to get into a place.
Yeah. Well, hopefully some of that settles out and, you know, people get that opportunity again. And
Right.
I know that anytime I've seen, at least in the last 25 years, is whenever there's a seemingly unfixable, market condition, somehow it finds its way back
Mhm.
to that kind of equilibrium. And so I can't predict how that's going to happen, but I'm looking forward to that for people.
Yes.
But yeah, I just was curious to pick your brain, being that you spent so much time in real estate and you've been in San Diego market for so long.
Mhm.
I mean, there's so much I'm sure you could share with us, but I really do appreciate you spending the time to let us get to know you a little better and talk through some of these things. So appreciate you coming in and taking the time.
Well, it's been great, and it's only for you, my best son-in-law. Otherwise, I may not have done it, but
Oh,
no.
I appreciate it. No, I know it was not your ideal thing to do, but you did great. Thanks for the good conversation. and
Absolutely, bud.
We'll have you back next time you're in town.
All right,
All
sounds
right.
good, buddy.
Thanks.
All right, thanks.